Okay.
This morning I woke up and thought, what is the worst movie of all time? Like, factually, definitively, what is the worst film ever made? I spent many a minute pondering this question, eventually deciding upon Avengers Age of Ultron, which was literally the most dull 2 hours of my life. I would sooner spend 2 hours...
Nah. Thor, The Dark World. It's way worse. I saw that movie and I don't remember shit. But I know I fucking hated it. It was so
Getting
fucking bad.
continuously ran over by trains and have to endure that again.
And they had the bad guy. They had the doctor, one of the Doctor Who's, play the bad guy, and they wasted it.
Will you kiss your mother with
They
that mouth?
But that was
That
until I went to the
actor.
IMDb list of lowest ranked movies, and sitting there right at the top was Disaster Movie. Disaster Movie? I thought to myself. I
Never
remember
seen.
watching that as a kid and thinking it was sick. I probably watched it
I've
about
never
10
seen it.
times when I was 11 years old and loved every single second of it. And when I say it's bottom, I mean it's technically kind of second bottom with Super Babies, Baby Geniuses too. But since that's a sequel and I won't get all the lore because I outright refuse to watch more than one Baby Geniuses film,
What is your last word?
Duck.
we're just going to
Oh,
go for Disaster
that
Movie
looks
in this
fun.
one. And there's also a load of weird and obscure films
like
that
a
have
horror
lower
movie I would
ratings
love
that are
as a
for
kid.
some reason not on this list, like The Amazing Bulk, for example.
Bulk.
The hell is
My
that?
favorite superhero. Bulk.
But we'll ignore those for now since
need
they're
an
not
MCU.
officially
What
the
the-
worst, sort of. Now, if you don't know what Disaster Movie
What the fuck was that?
is for now since they're not officially the worst, sort of.
Okay, I'm not even mad because you can tell they have no budget. So, I mean, that's like a YouTube shit bus. That I can't even call that the worst movie.
Now, if you don't know what Disaster Movie is, first of all, get a grip and engage in some proper Western culture. But Disaster Movie is basically a parody of disaster movies, and it uses IPs from other movies to, I guess, make fun of or something. I don't know. It's been a long time since I watched it. Now, you may be thinking, Disaster Movie? That sounds awfully like the other movies, like Date Movie, Epic Movie, Scary Movie, Scary Movie 2, Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 4, and Scary
Same
Movie
people,
5.
right?
And you'd be absolutely right, because they were made by the same people,
Yeah.
sort of. The two genius big brains behind Disaster Date and Epic Movie also have writing credits on all the Scary Movies. Now, these movies hold a special place in my heart. They are what I consider sleepover movies, because when I was growing up back in
Yeah.
the Stone Age in our fields, I'm about to turn 23. Kill me. These are what you watch when you go and sleep around your mate's house. It's very nostalgic in a way to think back to them, especially the scary movies. But this is the first time I'm going to be watching
What the
Disaster Movie while being above the age of 12. So my perspective on this will almost definitely be different because according to IMDb, I was completely brain dead as a child. But before I get into watching this apparent monstrosity of a film, there's like, well, loads of you that aren't subscribed to this.
Okay.
If you know, if you did, we'll check. I mean, I don't feel well. I mean, I still technically haven't finished watching the whole thing. There was a final musical number at the end, but I couldn't stomach it. I basically had to leave immediately as that started.
Hey!
But first of all, this isn't actually a parody of disaster movies. It's just kind of a mishmash of films from 2008 being parodied.
It's gonna be strong.
I think the closest
It
they got
looks
to
kind of fun.
referencing an actual disaster movie is maybe referencing The Flat from Cloverfield, but even then, probably not. It's probably just a coincidence. So the film isn't about disaster movies. So what is Disaster Movie about? Is it about love, film, or the absence of meaning? Is Disaster Movie about the death of everything and everyone we love? To understand this highly important question, we need to look at the first scene, which is a straight reference to the hit 2008 movie, 10,000 BC. Do you guys remember 10,000 BC,
Nope.
the classic historical
Never
action
seen it.
caveman blockbuster? Honestly, I didn't even realize this was a reference to 10,000 BC until someone pointed it out to me and went, oh yeah, that's a reference to 10,000 BC. I was like, you sure? You sure? Are you sure it's not just like a setting? They're like, oh yeah, no, trust me, it's 10,000 BC. Because honestly, that film had just exited my memory entirely. So that's the first spoof we're given, and the guy falls in shit. It's
Ew.
actually really intelligent foreshadowing because it actually prefaces what the experience
It's
of
going to
watching
be shit.
disaster movie is like. And then he screamed like a girl. Because, that's not what big hairy caveman traditionally sound like. And then Amy Winehouse shows up out of the bushes and is a saber-toothed cat. and tells the caveman that the world is ending in 2008. And then she pulls the crystal skull from Indiana Jones
would
and the
still
Kingdom of the
smash.
Crystal Skull out of her hair. And then they make fun of Amy Winehouse for being an alcoholic. This is 3 years before she died of alcohol poisoning, so that aged well. So anyone who watched this movie past 2011 is immediately put off by it.
sucks.
But that 10,000 BC bit was all the dream of Will, a guy who doesn't want to commit to this girl he's seeing because he has commitment issues, like the TikTok song.
I've got commitment issues.
And he doesn't want to commit so much that he's completely fine with a dwarf and Flavor Flav
What?
ragging her next to him. And how didn't he wake up? And that's probably the most interesting this film gets, as you have yet to be desensitized to the onslaught of random and aggressively shoved in film references. And then we jump to a Sweet 16 party, which doesn't really resemble a Sweet 16 party. I mean, there's some balloons and there's an intro screen, but there's nothing about this that
My
is really
Sweet
anything to
16.
do with
Oh, I remember.
Sweet 16. Like,
This
most
is
people making this film will
definitely
probably
in the
play on the
MTV
Sweet
era.
16 bit and parody it. So there's quite a lot to be done there, but they just decide to not. And it starts off where Will goes up to a woman that he thinks is his hot girlfriend, but oh no, it is ugly lady. How embarrassing this is for him and how entertaining this is for the audience.
Smash.
He then talks to another lady, but oh no, she lifts up her
Smash.
top and it's hairy. Oh
Ew.
no, how embarrassing.
Okay, no, pass.
This is and how entertaining this is
Pass.
for the audience. He then meets Dr. Phil, who for some reason is a sex offender in this film. Do you get it? Because Dr. Phil in real life comes across as a relatively nice man. Like, it's not even funny. There's no joke here. They've just taken Dr. Phil and gone, lol, what if we made him a total creep? Wouldn't that be funny?
Doctor, fill you up.
There's no fucking joke here. And then there's a No Country for Old Men reference. Who is this for? The 12-year-old
Yeah.
target audience for this film do not know what No Country for Old Men is. Or who Flavor Flav is. Where the fuck is he in this? And then we get a bit which is a parody of Superbad, but not really, because they kind of just say what the characters in Superbad would say. Like,
I don't watch a
even
lot
know
of
if you can
movies,
really consider this parody.
so I
It's kind of
wouldn't
just
like
like
to
looking
it's
into
just
a
a bunch of
portal into an
reference that I'm
alternative
not gonna-
universe where
that I'm not
Superbad is
going to
really
understand.
shit. And then Kim Kardashian, who's also in this film, tells her boyfriend to shoot the boys from Superbad for trying to steal alcohol, which seems fair. And then Carmen Electra shows up and has a fight with Kim Kardashian that goes on for about a minute and a half. But what?
Okay.
It turns out it's just a fantasy. Oh, that's so wacky and sick. But the fantasies in this movie are just as absurd as the
God
non-fantasies, if not, like, the non-fantasies are
Ew.
more absurd than the fantasies.
Ew.
So you can't really distinguish between the two because they use the same logic. And then he does Wanted, because do you guys remember Wanted, the movie about yeah, me neither. And a few minutes later, Will's woman shows up with a Calvin Klein model. There's not really any joke here. I guess it's just like, lol, oh look, she's sleeping with loads of men and making him jealous. But then for some reason start doing High School Musical out of literally nowhere, and there's a Soulja Boy reference,
Okay,
which is
that
my
sounds
favorite
fun.
part of the film because I love Soulja Boy. He is the best rapper
I
of
used
all
to love
time.
High
I love
School
you,
Musical.
Soulja Boy. And then Juno from the film Juno, who as a character is meant to be 16 and pregnant, drinks loads of alcohol because, do you get it? Both 16-year-olds and pregnant people aren't supposed to drink. And that's funny because it's like the complete opposite of what she should be doing. Do you get it, guys? It's funny, it's good comedy. And at this point, the apocalypse
Yeah.
begins and we finally move on. And that's the end of the party scene. It went on for 14 minutes. And within a film...
You know, I'm getting the impression this is not the type of movie you go to, you know, you pay money to go see at the movies, but it looks like a fun movie to get high or drink and watch with your friends. So I don't think it's like the worst movie of all time. I've definitely seen like way worse.
That's basically an hour long. That's a lot of time to commit to one single
Like,
scene. And all this
unbearable-
sequence has served to do is
unbearable,
reiterate what we've
even
learned
drunk
from the
movies.
previous two scenes. Oh, and also the world is ending. But aside from that, we're just introduced to Juno from the film Juno, who plays a weirdly prominent role in this film. And other from that, we're just taken from shit parody sequence to shit parody sequence without anything to really bring them together. Like, oh, let's look at Kim Kardashian
Day.
wrestle Carmen Electra for a bit. Now let's do a High School Musical bit where the protagonist sings about being gay. Now we're going to do a No Country for Old Men reference. Like, there's no reason for it. It's like jangling keys in front of a baby so they don't notice you're clobbering their parents. But in this case, it's more like shoving references down the audience's throat so much they don't realise that literally nothing is happening. What point did this, or this serve to the plot. It's empty, and it's all being shoved in to hide the fact these fellas don't have a story to build their film around. Now, I could ignore all that stuff about, like, plot and the film actually being about something if it achieved what a comedy sets out to achieve, which is being funny. But it even fails at that. Now, I must admit, there was one time I almost laughed throughout watching this entire film, and that was at this bit.
Are you still coming to my Sweet 16 party?
You're 25.
Am I a big numbskull dum-dum
was
baby
about
for
to say,
almost
you're
laughing?
20,
Almost
you're
definitely.
16,
But other
what
than
the
that
fuck?
bit, which is really, really funny, and I'm not stupid for laughing at it. This film fails so bad at being funny, but is instead horrifically cringe. Then we move on to the second act of the film, and if you think fuck all happens in the first act, then brace yourself, because absolutely fuck all happens in the second. It starts off with a load of people running around because the world is suddenly ending for some reason, and they see Hannah
Because it's
Montana
20
has been hit by
What?
an asteroid, and she says some stuff, but I kind of zoned out because it goes on a bit.
Keep rocking!
The thing I noticed is from this point onwards in the film, it just gets really, really boring. And I'm not sure if it's because the pacing slowed down or whatever, or if my brain just short-circuited and I could no longer pay attention to this shit. But past this point in the film, it just seems to really, really drag, like, a lot. But the main reason behind this dragging, as far as I've been able to
is that
gather
Fast and
between
Furious?
states of consciousness while watching this abyss of a film, because from the point where the apocalypse started, the writers seemed to entirely give up on the plot. I mean, there wasn't really much to begin with. Like, it was already incredibly loose at the beginning, but it sort of felt like things were being set up. The crystal skull seemed important. The protagonist was having dreams that seemed important. But by the second act, these plot elements had dropped almost entirely, and the focus becomes centered around giving you a string of nonsensical, disconnected gags.
Hello, lover.
That aren't even funny. And another thing that adds to this general feeling of numbness is pretty much every time they're in a scene, they're just stood in a
So,
semicircle, observing
Kim
what
Kardashian
happens
is
and
not a
talking
cameo.
to each
She's
other
like a whole
as if
ass
they're stuck in
character.
some fucking two-dimensional shadow realm. This literally feels like a Year 5 Christmas play. And you can see in some of these
She
scenes
like-
that they actually have some good locations and sets for, like, what
She
this
like
film is. But when
actually
everyone's just
a main
standing in a
character?
semicircle, not even interacting with the space they're in, literally just standing there and sort of observing, it ends up feeling like pure ambient. Realistically, this should have been a YouTube sketch, not a feature-length film. If they cut this down into like a 15-minute YouTube shitpost, it may be considered half
See,
decent
that's what
for
I'm saying.
2008. But dragging this out for an
It's
hour
good
and 10 minutes.
by
I mean,
YouTube
the official
standards, but
runtime of
not
this is
for-
closer
for
to
a
an
movie.
hour and a half, but the last 20 minutes is just some cringe song and credits. So it could reach the minimum threshold for a theatrical release. There's 15 minutes of credits. Surely there can't be that many people that worked on this shit. Most of this is shot from 1 or 2 camera angles. There was more camera work and production put into E-Boys videos, for fuck's sake. But anyway, back to Hannah Montana. There's one bit in particular with this that creeped me out a bit.
Let me just say, those totally sexy and utterly provocative pictures of me were
Hold
leaked
up.
onto my...
Give me 1 second.